Hi, my name is Sister Moore. I'm a missionary here serving in the Kansas Wichita Mission. I've been here for about almost a year now. But today I'm gonna be sharing a family recipe that we got some from friends. So it's not fully family recipe, but it is one that has really blessed me all my life and what I've done. And I'll tell you a story about that as we go throughout this process of making these cinnamon rolls, because that's what we're gonna be making today. So to first start off, you have 2 bowls. One you're gonna put in 2 cups and 1/4 cup of milk in. So we already got 1 cup milk measured. I'm gonna pour another one and 1/4 cup in. Cup. And now you add a 3/4 cup of water. You already had a measuring cup that was 3/4. And now you just take this bowl and you put it in the microwave for 2 minutes and 30 seconds. So the milk and the water is now warm. What you do now is you add 3 tablespoons yeast. So we'll have to measure that. 3 tablespoons, and these are weird packets, so it's not going to be equal right away to 3 or 1 tablespoon. So there's 1 tablespoon. And 3. There's some dump this extra in there. But now we're just going to add 3/4 of sugar to this. Just dump it in. You can mix it around, you don't have to. I like to, just so it's like spread out through the whole thing. And then you'll just set it aside and just let it sit, and then it will start bubbling when it's ready. Take your other bowl and you just crack 3 eggs. Two and 3. And mix it up. After the eggs are beaten, you add 1 tablespoon of salt. It's a lot of the salt. It is okay. Just dump it in, because this makes a lot of cinnamon rolls, so don't worry, you're not just eating a bite of salt. And then you get the 3/4 sugar in, and you add 3/4 of oil into this. And then you just mix it up again. And make a mess. Once you're done with that, you can, while that's waiting to bubble, and you're going to put that in it once it's done bubbling, but you can put in some flour into your mixing bowl. I usually use a Bosch mixer, which is more of like a bread mixer thing. Now we add some 8.5 cups of flour. So we got our cup right here. There's 1. So the story there was a family that always brought some cinnamon rolls, this recipe, to our school at lunchtime. And so we went, and we always knew what day she would be there to bring the cinnamon rolls. And we loved them so much that my mom ended up getting the recipe from her. And so we got that recipe, and we made it usually for this time where we watch our prophets and apostles speak of our church. There's usually 2 times when they do that every 6 months in the year. And so we'd always make cinnamon rolls and bring it to families that we felt like needed them. And so I've always loved doing that with my mom and just making them. But I also made them to help me with something I love to do, which is playing basketball. I ended up selling these cinnamon rolls so I can make some money to go to basketball camp. And I loved it. I'll add the half. I forgot that, but it's okay. You're gonna add more flour to it while it's mixing the dough. It's pretty much bubbly and now it's mixing around, but that's okay. We're gonna just put this in. And then scrape the inside very well because you want all of the salt, eggs, everything. Just put it in. And then I'm gonna mix it in. Dump it in here. And this KitchenAid is going to get really full. And so you're going to mix it very slowly if you're using a KitchenAid. Okay, so we got all of that. Now we just put that in and just mix it very slowly. And mix. So we're just gonna let that mix for a bit. It's gonna take a while to get all the flour incorporated. But as it gets together, you're gonna add a little bit more flour so it gets off the side. So it's basically, you just want it to be all the way mixed. And I'm gonna have to scrape this off on the sides a bit to get it down. This isn't the best mixer for dough. Well, a lot of dough at least. I'm gonna get this down and try to mix up the bottom and bring that up. But you really just want the dough not to stick to the side. So after it's all mixed, just if you need to add more flour, so I'll just add a little bit more and mix. Put this in. But it's pretty much not sticking to the sides anymore, so we're pretty much good. It's sticking to the top, but we'll just scrape that off like we did earlier. So we'll just, now what you do after it's not touching the sides, you're gonna get a bowl. There's a lot of dough and it's gonna rise really big if you leave it in one. So I'm gonna split it in half. I'm gonna put some flour in my hand so I don't get it all over. There's me flour on my dress, but that is okay. I'm just gonna take this all off. It might be sticky. It all. It's okay if you lose some dough from it being on your hands and on this thing. You will have plenty of dough to do to make the cinnamon rolls. So you got that all undone. What you want to do next is take this spray and just spray the bowls. And you want to spray it as much as possible so the dough doesn't stick to this bowl because you're going to end up taking it out. So you can do that to both bowls. So they're pretty much covered. Move that out of the way. And it's going to take half of the dough. So I'm going to take this out. And just kind of take about half. I'm going to spray my hands too. about half. And there's still some in there. The reason we're not gonna leave it in this bowl is because it's not sprayed. So take all this out and put it in our other sprayed bowl. So you're just gonna take a towel, so we have one right here, and you're just gonna cover it up. You can take a towel, or you can take plastic wrap, whatever you have, and just cover it. Sometimes me and my mom, we just stick it in the microwave, and it does that way. You can leave it with a towel on. So I think this one can fit in the microwave, so we'll just put it in there. So that rises for an hour, and then we'll just do the next step after that. So after the dough is risen, we take some flour and we just sprinkle it on the counter. And then you'll take a towel off the dough and put it right here. And I like to make it so it's easier to make it into a rectangle, because that will be the easiest way to make the cinnamon rolls look the best. You just roll it out. This takes some effort. You want it pretty thin because it's going to be rolling together, and so you want it. I'll show you when I get it there. And it's not going to be a perfect rectangle. I've never made a perfect rectangle. Okay. So once you have it rolled out, you take your butter that's been sitting and softening, and you take a knife and just spread it around, getting butter everywhere. Hopefully it's soft enough, because it will be easier to spread that way. Okay, I'm just finishing up getting all the butter everywhere. Try to get as much as you can everywhere. Then when you're done with that, you're going to take your sugar, there's white sugar, and just take a handful and just sprinkle it everywhere. And there's no way to do this, just put it everywhere. So when you're done with that, now you take the brown sugar. And just do the same thing that you did with the white sugar and just get a lot of it everywhere. And then now you take your cinnamon and just sprinkle it as well. And then now you just mix everything in to incorporate it all together and get it as much as the edges as possible. It's okay if it gets on the counter, you'll just throw it in the trash. Okay, and now we're gonna roll the cinnamon rolls up. You just take the edge and you try to do it as tightly as possible. And you just keep rolling. The ends will look weird, but that's okay. Because I didn't make it a perfect rectangle, it's going to be very uneven for each of these cinnamon rolls. But it's okay. Some people like the smaller ones, some people like the bigger ones. And now you take some floss and just pull off some string. And you will be using that to cut it. But first I'm going to spray this pan. And you want to get it everywhere. And then take that floss that you just took off and you go around the edges. I like to wrap it around the fingers so it's easier to make it. And then you just cut about 2 inches thick. I'm not gonna be perfect at this, but you just do that. And you just put it right there on the thing and you just layer them up. And you kind of want to lean the edge of the cinnamon roll to the side because otherwise it could fall apart and then just not look so great. And these are going to rise for about 45 minutes once I'm done loading the tray. So this pan is full. So we'll just stick it in the oven. It's easier to rise that way because it's enclosed. You don't have to cover it with anything. But sometimes you can cover it with a towel instead if you want to do that. Just don't have towels. So we'll let that rise for about 45 minutes. The cinnamon rolls should be done rising by now. So we're gonna pull them out, preheat the oven to 400 degrees, and once it is ready to put in, we'll put in and you bake them for 10 minutes. There, you can see how big they look. Like, they get pretty big, especially if you leave them longer than 45 minutes. Preheat the oven, 400. So we're gonna make the frosting now while the oven's preheating. So we'll take a full thing of cream cheese. It calls for half, but my family likes a lot of cream cheese, so we put a full thing in. Open this up. There's our cream cheese, just throw that away. And then it calls for a cube of butter melted. So make sure your butter's melted. And just pour it in. I'm gonna scrape the edges of this so you can get all that butter. And you just mix these two together until the cream cheese is softened. And our oven is done preheating, so we're gonna stick those cinnamon rolls in while we make this frosting. And you just bake it for 10 minutes. Or less if it's set a timer. So we have a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. So we'll dump that in. Once I pour it. Pour it in, and then we have a teaspoon of vanilla. Do it a little bit over. Pour that in, and then 5 tablespoons of milk. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Just let that mix. And then we will be adding 3 cups of powdered sugar. I'm gonna stop mixing for a little bit. Just add them in. So there's 1 cup. Mix that one in. Get the other cup ready. Okay. Mix it up. 2 cups. And the 3rd cup. And then you just mix it, scrape the sides. I'll do that in a second. So it's all mixed in. Scrape this stuff off the mixer. And then I'll show you what the frosting looks like a little bit better. There's still some powdered sugar on the sides, but that's what the frosting looks like. And then you'll just take that, scratch that, and just put it on the cinnamon rolls when they're done. So the cinnamon rolls are about to be done in the oven. We can check them to see how they're doing. Oh, there it is. Get some oven mitts and pull it out. To tell that they're done, there is some brown edges right there. Yeah, and then we're just gonna let them cool. And then once they've cooled for a bit, you just add the frosting on it. They've cooled for a bit now, so we're just gonna add the frosting on top. Okay. Well, thank you all for joining me. I hope you enjoy the cinnamon rolls, and we'll see you on the next event.